Ah, there you are. And just in time. We're discussing how Disneyland's Haunted Mansion is actually an occult ritual. You might be asking yourself, what does this guy know about occult rituals? It's a fair question. Not as much as some, but more than many. I'm a lifelong student of the occult, a practicing ritual magician, a Freemason, a certified feng shui consultant, and an Adeptus Minor in the Golden Dawn. Do I really think that Disneyland's Haunted Mansion is an occult ritual? No, not really. However, I think it was influenced by occult ideas and concepts. Consider the following. Disneyland's Haunted Mansion opened on August 9th, 1969. This was the same year that Woodstock opened with an invocation from a Swami. This was the same year when Anton LaVey published his Satanic Bible. And it was the exact same day that Sharon Tate was famously murdered by the Manson family. I'm not saying there's a connection, other than to point out that things were a little weird at the time. Uncle Walt had died a few years earlier with the attraction incomplete. So without the leadership and vision of Walt Disney, where were the Imagineers to look for direction? Is it unreasonable to think that at a time heavily influenced by the occult, while working on an occult-themed attraction without other direction, the Disney engineers might have dabbled in the occult? It seems like common sense to me. Let me give you a brief overview of the attraction. The Haunted Mansion begins in the foyer, where we are spoken to by a disembodied voice, the ghost host, played by Paul Frees. We see and hear several odd things, but no actual apparitions until Madame Leota, a more experienced practitioner, is utilized. Then the spirits begin to materialize. Something happens after the bride and the Hatbox ghosts are encountered, and the tone of the ride changes. We enter the cemetery with much singing and celebration, then the ride ends. What does all this mean from an occult perspective? Well, here's my take. We hear the disembodied voice of Paul Frees, the ghost host, right from the start. He tells us to make room for everyone, points out the presence or lack thereof of doors and windows, tells us not to pull down on the safety bar. He's giving us common sense, useful advice throughout the ride, and he's our constant companion. The way I interpret the ghost host from an occult perspective is that he is our inner teacher, our inner master, a Holy Spirit, perhaps even the HGA, the Holy Guardian Angel, who guides us on our forthcoming magical journey. Next, we are off to the stretching room. This room is especially interesting from an occult perspective. My theory is that under the jokes and special effects and the animatronics, this is where we make our first attempt to contact the spirits in a ritual with the assistance of our inner master, the ghost host. At least, that is what I believe the story is supposed to be. This is not an actual ritual, it's entertainment, but is entertainment based on occultism. For example, the Rose Cross is a symbol used by the Golden Dawn. While a Rose Cross is not blatantly featured, there is a cross in the ceiling. Further, the Golden Dawn makes use of 4 Enochian tablets, each representing one of the 4 elements. There are 4 paintings in the stretching room. During a ceremonial magic ritual, the Enochian tablets are placed in the north, south, east, and west sides of the room, just like the paintings. Further, the paintings represent death by the 4 elements. So there's death by water, death by fire, death by earth, i.e. burial, and death by loss of air. Now, what really gets me about this room is the wallpaper. It's such a weird pattern and found nowhere else in the Haunted Mansion. It makes no sense, but if you consider that this may be the room for ritual magic using the 4 elements, it kind of makes sense. Certain colors of candles are used to represent the 4 elements in ritual magic. So red for fire, yellow for air, blue for water, and green or black for earth. After our little ritual in the stretching room, we have some limited success. We are awakening, but we are not quite there yet. Then we meet Madame Leota, who I contend is a living practitioner projecting herself through the crystal ball in the seance room. At last we achieve a successful physical manifestation of the spirits. Madame Leota's ritual worked. We encounter a bride. The bride is an interesting choice for Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. There are several references to brides in occultism. The bride spans many traditions, but usually represents union with some higher power. Symbolically, we are transcending. In the current version of Disneyland's Haunted Mansion, it's the year 2022 as the time of this recording. The next figure we encountered is the Hatbox Ghost. I've heard that the Hatbox Ghost was in the original 1969 version of the Haunted Mansion and was taken out until recently, but I'm not sure. He may have just been added because he's cool, and he is cool. I'm not going to get hung up on him. However, as a result of this encounter, the Doom Buggy that we are riding tips, and you're on your back for a section. And I believe this is to symbolize that you have fallen out the attic window, or perhaps off the balcony, and you died. Being dead, where else would you go but the graveyard? And there's a definite change in tone. There is singing, and the ghosts are much friendlier and happy and funny. Also, people from all walks of life are together here. For example, servants drink tea with their lords and ladies. Even kings and queens play like children on a playground. Death is the great equalizer. One thing that I think is especially interesting is that there is a skeletal arm holding a trowel, one of the working tools of masonry. And the trowel is the tool that unites us. I think ultimately this part of the ride is a reference to Memento Mori. Remember one day that you will die, and after death, we're all the same. It's kind of like the Small World ride, except everyone is dead. But there's one more thing. This requires a little explanation into ritual magic. So in ritual magic, there's a sequence known as the analysis of the keyword. It's a series of gestures in which the magician spells the letters LVX with his arms. So the L is the sign of the morning devices, V, the sign of Typhon and Apophis, X, the sign of Osiris risen, LVX, the light of the cross. So Lux means light in Latin, I believe. This reference is to an Egyptian myth in which the god Osiris dies, and then he comes back to life. It's an alchemical formula for transformation. What's interesting is that there is an Egyptian in the Haunted Mansion graveyard. He is having tea with an old man. The old man bears a resemblance to Father Time, also known as Kronos or Saturn, a god in some mythologies. If the old man is a god, it would make sense that the person he is speaking to and having tea would also be a god. The Egyptian god most likely to be wrapped in his risen mummy would probably be Osiris. Also, the sarcophagus right behind the mummy is making the gesture of Osiris risen. Then at the very end, you ride an escalator up out of the darkness into the Lux, into the light, usually the light of day, but even at night it's brighter at the top of the escalator as you exit the ride. As a result of riding the Haunted Mansion ride, you, like Osiris, were slain and risen and have undergone an alchemical transformation. Join me next time when we'll be examining the Goetia in Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. No, I'm just kidding. But what do you think? I'm sure there are occultists watching this that want to correct me or point out something I missed. Please be my guest. And just to be clear, I don't think that you are actually undergoing an alchemical transformation or participating in a ritual by riding this ride. I'm just saying that the Haunted Mansion was inspired by occult ideas, and it's interesting to speculate what those ideas might have been. That's all. Anyway, buy my book, Dream of the Wolfman, on Amazon, link in the description, and join my cult. Hit the subscribe button. Until next time, any spirits imprisoned by this ceremony, you are now released. I declare this temple duly closed.